Welcome to Sacred, the podcast that invites you to reclaim your intuition, resist exploitive systems, and remember the love that brought you to teaching and caregiving in the first place.
We're your hosts,
Angela Carolina Garcia
and Lauren Staubel. Join us on a rough and tumble journey of reckoning and transformation. Hey everyone, thanks for signing on today. Before we start our sacred conversation, let's take a moment to get present. So wherever you are, if you're in a chair or you're standing, just take a moment to feel where you are. And then if that feels like a good place to stay, you just stay there feeling where you are. Otherwise, you could take a breath in, feel the breath filling the lungs, maybe even reaching the belly, and then exhaling all the way out. And then feeling the breath, no need to change it, just feel it. And if you want to stay here, you stay here. Otherwise, you might bring your awareness through the breath to every cell of your body and just breathe in, feel cellular awareness, bringing you into this moment. And then exhale. And then maybe this cellular awareness, the vibrations, can come with you back into your space. If you had your eyes closed, you could open your eyes, look around. If there's any people in your space, you could give them a smile. Just notice where you are. Coming back. Okay. So today we're going to be in conversation with Latoya Gayle.
Hi, welcome.
Hello.
I met Latoya at work, and she'll introduce herself and share a little bit more about herself. But I remember Latoya introduced herself and her advocacy work, and I was like, I don't know anything about that style of advocacy. I know advocacy within childcare centers from the lens of being a teacher, from the lens of being a student, but not from the lens of motherhood and not from the lens of like social organizing. And I was like, I need to go and have lunch with her right now. And sure enough, we collected our food and I was like, hi, I'm Angela. Or something like this must have happened because we did end up sitting together at lunch and connecting that very first time. And so while we dive in, tell us a little bit more about yourself, Latoya, and the love that brought you to advocacy for early childhood and early childhood children.
Yeah. It's so funny when you guys were asking me to send a bio over. I was like, bios kind of read resumes. And I was and what I was thinking, it was like, who am I? Like what brings me to the work, right? And I was thinking, I'm a Black woman, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm an auntie, I'm a friend. And I think all of that shapes who I am and how I work. And so the work is a reflection of those pieces of me. Now I could list things that I've done, blah 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 blah. Look, Google me. But I think the important thing is who I bring to this work, and I wanted to frame it that way as well, as because I think part of why the work is sometimes not valued by people is because people don't value all those things that I just said that I am. and so I want to center that's who I am, and that's who's coming to do this work, and I do this work because of who I am. And so that's it in a nutshell. I know.
Thank you so much for saying that, and thank you so much for humanizing this moment and in this conversation, because that is why we're here. It is because of who we are outside of professionalism or outside of all these things that we can Google about ourselves. But we can't Google this, that you're an auntie necessarily.
Right.
Like that doesn't exist on our LinkedIn on our LinkedIn tab.
Right.
So thank you so much for naming that.
Yeah.
And Lauren and I go back and forth on this work, and we talk so much about the sacredness of being a teacher and being in relationship with young children. And I think a big part of our advocacy or our resistance to the current system is the dehumanization process of it. And so I'm wondering a little bit about, what does sacred relationships mean to you?
Yeah. When I think about like what is sacred, just like the word, it's like something that is hallowed, something that's holy, right? Um, Something that's soulful, really important. And I think about the relationships that hold those places, like for me. I think about my mother, and I think about all the women who have mothered me, right? Not that don't necessarily have to be my mother. And how I was just I always say that I am so blessed that I was just loved on. I was really loved on. And I still am. And I'm so grateful. But I think you ever hear people say things like hurt people.
Right.
And so not that I've never hurt anyone, because I'm sure I have.
Right.
But I think I was loved on in a way that is so sacred that it shapes the way that I am in the world. It shapes the way that I think about how I'm in relation with each other. I think relationships, period, are sacred. I think sometimes when people think of relationships, they think about romance, but we're like in relationship. We're in relationship with different people and things in our environment. We're in relationship. We're always in relationship with something. And I try to remember that. I try to remember that in my own practice of mothering my own children. That they are individuals, right? And I'm here like their spirit guide. Like you came into the world as whoever you are, and I'm just here to kind of just guide you as you become, right? Whatever that means. And so I think about that in my own mothering. I think of that in my auntieing. I have nieces older than me, but I do have some nieces that are younger than me who I spent a lot of time with. Like before I had kids, they were always with me. So I think about that. I think about community, like your family, like this extended thing. Like I think I was really blessed to have that. I'm the youngest of 7. So I was really blessed. And both of my parents come from big families too. So I'm blessed to have like family. Family is like all the people around you who are making sure that you have what you need. And it's this beautiful like give and take. And I try to have that in my friendships. I think my friendships are secret.
Yeah.
As well. I try to be that in those, and I'll start rambling. So just interrupt me when you can.
No, keep going.
On to something else. I think about community in general, and I think that's something that like I struggle with, and with work, right? With when I say work, the things you get paid to do, because there's not a lot of places where you can have community that's not about just like, oh, we do this together because we make money together. But I think about nurturing and cultivating the communities that we're in this together because we're in this together. Like,
right.
Because what is the saying? My liberation is tied up in your liberation, right?
Right.
So, like, I think about nurturing those spaces, and I do have those spaces with people, and I think the sacredness of those nourishes me through the other things that I have to do to earn money because we live in a capitalist country and society. So, but yeah, I'll start rambling.
No. It makes me think of, I was just at home in New Mexico with my family for the Easter holiday. And it isn't until we're in that moment together. I like anticipate when I go. Like I go a week early. I spend time with some aunties, and I spend some time with my grandma, and I spend some time with my uncles. And then like we all come together on Easter, and it's like all the extended family. And it comes with all of its bits and pieces, right? Like it comes with all of their histories and all of their traumas and all of their love. But we're all in this one moment together.
Yeah.
And none of it matters. And like we know that there's something going on, but it's these other parts of relationships that are like, oh, but we can spend 8 hours in the park on a hot Sunday morning or a hot Sunday evening to all be able to be in this right relationship with each other in this moment for this time in this part of the year.
Right.
And so I definitely don't think you're rambling. It's making me like remember.
Yeah. And you know, I usually have like the Sankofa statue that I have. And that's and a drink a symbol from Ghana, and it means to like people say, you know, go back and get it, but like to know where you're going, you have to know where you came from. And it's a beautiful thought to me. And in this past Easter with my family, we haven't done a big Easter in a few years because of COVID. But we all came together, and it was so beautiful. I had my nieces who are in their 20s now. Like, I'm like, you guys got to help me like fill the eggs and hide them. Like I used to do that for you. Like, it's the passing of tradition. Like this is how the word is passed. This is how our traditions carry on. Like someone did it for you, and now you're going to do it for the people below you. Right. And so just watching that, you know, I was having all the feelings like, oh my goodness, you know, but it's beautiful. And I watch my mother that way. My mom is 86. And so I watch her a lot. And I really wanted to do Easter this year at her house because I know it makes her happy, and it makes her happy to watch a tradition that can go on without her doing anything. Like we're at your house, but everyone else cooked and everyone else will clean up and everyone else brought everything. And we wanted to just all be together with you and honoring you and the way that you loved and nurtured us, you know, and to carry that on. And I see like, you know, the joy on her face when she sees like the love continue.
Yeah. That's so. Now that you've brought us to this moment and we're talking about Easter, I was thinking about my Easter this year, and I think my family at the moment is going through healing, particularly my dad is a sibling of 4, and of those 4 children, there are only 3 grandchildren. And my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, is not in right relationship with her in-laws. So she doesn't come to Easter and hang out. But all of us that get together are from my paternal grandfather's side. And particularly my brother and my cousin and I, we are also the grandchildren of the eldest sibling of many children. So like we are the first of many. So I think me and my brother, and particularly my cousin and I, we carry a lot of what our fathers went through and what our grandfathers carried, and the way that it affected us as women and traumatized us as women. And you're saying this, and this year, my cousin Alex and I, and maybe my brother, I'm not so sure, but my cousin Alex and I think really enjoyed like still being babied and still being nurtured.
Yes.
which is a different way, which is very different from how you're expressing like the passing on of tradition. But we're sort of, even though we've always been the ones that like collect eggs or go and do the egg hunt, this year it was so funny because one of my aunts tells my cousin Alex, "You're supposed to be bringing your own eggs. You're all grown up." And my aunt Tilda, who is my dad's sister, who is Alex's mom, was like, "Don't worry, mamas. Like, I will bring you some eggs next year." And I was like, "Don't forget about me too." And she's like, "I got you. Don't worry about it." And then my other aunt was like, "You didn't have eggs this year?" And I was like, "No." And like, they gave me a carton of eggs to go and play with.
Yeah.
And I'm 34, and I think about that, how I'm so much looking forward to when Alex and I and my brother get to pass on our traditions, because the three of us have made our own traditions. But in this moment in my family where we're still enjoying this piece that before was really hard and it was really uncomfortable, but in our own way of working in our relationship or in shifting our relationship or being in right relationship with one another or in a sacred relationship with one another.
Yeah.
We're in this like midst of still being little kids in our mid 30s and early 20s.
Yeah.
Something you said resonated with me. I don't have children yet. So something that really stood out to me is that you don't have to be blood related. And, my students talk about that a lot too. And as part of the queer community, non-blood relationships are sacred too. And so I remember that one of my cousins that I used to babysit, as when she was little, asked me one day, "Are you a mother?" And I don't actually remember how old I was. I might have been 20, but I wasn't. And I was like, I wonder why she's asking me that. And I was like, no, I'm not a mother yet. You have to have children of your own to be a mother. And then actually when Angela and I were teaching together, one of my students asked, "Are you a mother?" And I was like, "No, not a mother." He was like, "You should be a mother." I was like, okay, like what does mothering mean something to children? Different, sometimes different than what we think mothering is. And that I thought that was beautiful, the way that you explained all relationships as sacred. And there's also this element of what is a transactional relationship, and when there's a transaction, we live in this capitalist context where we're getting paid to be with children sometimes. And right, though, or whatever it is, what it's leading me to our next question for you, Latoya, which is like, okay, sometimes that sacredness gets interrupted, right? And so how would you describe the issues that interrupt the sacredness of these relationships? Is there a moment or situation that kind of forced you to reckon with those issues?
Oh, there's so many interruptions. Life is an interruption, right? Right. I think, I mean, we could talk about like pay, like interrupts, like literally making choices. Like there are things that I'm considering for myself, professionally right now. And the biggest factor, people are like, well, oh, that's bold or whatever. That's exciting. And the biggest thing in my consideration is the salary is so low. Can I afford to do this? Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And can I afford to do it because I have so many other responsibilities, like financial responsibilities. I think capitalism interrupts everything in our
Oh yeah.
and our country. But I think also one of my children is neurodivergent. He's on the autism spectrum, and I think mothering him, I've learned so much from that. I think about how we're institutionalized, and in a lot of ways, you send your children, like by law, when they get to a certain age, you have to send them to school, right? And then before that, they're in in their early education and their early care, they're with people, and hopefully that can be in the type of environment that you want it to be in, but it's not always. But I think about how a child is born, and almost from the moment they're born, we try to change them.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to change them to fit into like this mold that, I don't know, some people decided society should be a certain way. And having a child who's neurodivergent, I'm like reminded of that like every single day. Like his whole like early developmental process, it was like, something is a little different about him. I'm not sure what it is. Let's go to a doctor. And not that that's bad, right? But like I feel like I've learned a lot, and I give people the opposite of advice of what I did when he was little. I think I spent so much time when he was little trying to interrupt who he is. And try to say like, well, this is what's expected of you. Let's, make sure you look at people, make sure you talk like this, make sure your voice is like this. This is all these things, right? And we sometimes think we're helping a kid be socialized, but sometimes we're just like interrupting who we are. There's an what is the show called? Why can't I remember the name of the show now? It's a show on HBO. But one of the scenes, the woman, it's a really interesting show. It's like why can't I remember the name of it now? But it's like sci-fi, but it's also dealing with racial trauma, and it's
I don't remember the name either.
And in one episode, she's like in another dimension, and the being there asked her, "Who are you uninterrupted?"
Oh,
right? And I said, who are we uninterrupted? And I think a lot of what we do and a lot of how we live our lives is just interrupting like who we are, like constantly. When you think about, especially when you see I think the beautiful thing about the littlest of us, the littlest kids, right, is I always say, when I see a baby, I say, oh, I'm so excited at all the possibility. They're just they're a ball of possibility. And how as they grow and as we grow, we like start like checking off all these possibilities. No, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't be this, right? And then that's who we become. We put all these limits on who they are and on who we are. And a lot of times, even thinking about like little kids' behaviors, they challenge adults, but we're constantly trying to say, how can we make you behave in a way that I'm comfortable with as an adult?
Right.
Like be a kid, and do you know what I mean? And then we start putting labels on kids because their behaviors are making us people who are further along in our institutionalization. I don't even know if that's a word. Uncomfortable, right? And it's like, I can't do that. Why? Why can't I do that?
Yeah.
And
can we just take a pause on that? You just said something really like we're further along in our institutionalization. That like, whoa.
Yeah.
What a gift for us to have children in our lives. If we are further along and we have these little reminders of who we actually are, like that is heavy and inspiring at the same time. This is reminding me of like we keep coming back to this idea of like, okay, our relationships with children, these sacred relationships are like DNA, like we spiral, we grow together, and they can be really grounding in the most frustrating moments. Thank you for pointing that out and reminding us like we have something good to lose here.
I'm thinking a lot about my mom, and she's also an educator, and I just happened to go to school before she did. I happened to travel the world and view the world from very different places versus she didn't. And she also doesn't like flying. So, but yesterday she called me and I've been able to witness her transformation as a mother. I've been able to see her transformation as an educator, as a caregiver. I've like seen my mom grow in the same way I'm sure she would like say she's seen me grow, of course, but I've seen her change her socialized way, or her, what was the word that you used? The
institutionalization.
Yeah, I've seen her institutionalization shift over the years in her teaching practice. And yesterday she called me and she said, I'm trying to get my next step in my teaching so that I can be a level 2 teacher in the public schools of New Mexico. And one of the questions is asking me about the way that we work with young children and how are we, teaching them all of these things that they need to do. And she said, but now that I know so much about early childcare and now that I know so much about children's development, I can't justify my response without saying executive functioning skills develop at early childcare. And if we can't support children's executive functioning skills at their level, then we can't do this other work. And I thought of that moment in this conversation with you because it reminds me of like the process of like we get to be in relationship with young children. And I think of my mom's story and her relationship with me, me as also an early childhood educator, and like the cycle that is existing of like we are institutionalized. And when you do the intense work of reflection and the intense work of being connected to your spirituality or being connected with yourself and what is ethical and what is considered right relationship, then you also get to bear witness to someone who's so institutionalized also shift into reclaiming their intuition or shift into their reclaiming of childhood or into tapping into their own healing, right? And that it makes me breathe, like just makes me feel a lot of like things in the midst of my chest. Yeah.
We're kind of getting.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
We're kind of getting to the next question that we have for you, but feel free to go back either direction. So we believe that spirituality holds the power to coming back in those moments of disruption, like to calming, and as kind of like you just described, Angela, this reconnecting with our intuition. We'd love to hear if you feel ready to share how your spirituality has sustained your willingness to keep coming back.
Oh, that's everything to me, honestly. My mom drugged me to church like as a kid.
Same. Driving to church Sunday morning was not an option.
Sunday school, going to Sunday school, all of it. And I had some great relationships at Sunday school, like all the kids complaining that we didn't want to go to church. But Sunday school also was a great place because, tried to bring like, the Bible down to a child's level. Like, let's have these conversations. But I also used to take a van would come pick up the kids for church. So we got to like hang out like on this van on our way. We got to church like before our parents, like on the church van. I had some really great like relationships at church growing up. And as an adult, I've like dibbled and dabbled back in and out of religion, I would say, right? But I've always maintained a relationship with my creator, God. I'm a Christian. And, because when everything feels out of control, I need something to remind me that I'm not in control, really. Honestly. that I'm not in control, but that they have me still. That there's something greater than me that holds me. And so like, yeah, that is so important to me. I've tried to do that with my children, like from when they're little. Like let's pray. Like there's this song that I've been listening to lately, and the lyrics are the only way through it is a hallelujah, you know? And I'm like, yes. Sometimes you have those days. Like that's, you know, how I'm gonna do this. You know, Jesus take the wheel, because that's all I got. And it can be different things that bring us to those places. I'm also really, I would say that I'm blessed that I do have a church community now. That I really like. Yesterday was my third child's birthday, but the day before, you know, we spent the day out like at one of these loud, you know, like trampoline arcade
Okay.
hours with him and some friends, and then he had a friend spend the night. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go to church today. I just need something like just to center me, like to calm me down. I need to be around some people that, you know, that are on this journey with me, right? And so, and you know, and so like, and so my church community is really great. I have like a prayer partner, you know, that you know, that we're focused on something together right now. We check in with each other and we pray on it and we talk about it. I pray with my husband. Like I pray all the time. Like I pray. Music is very spiritual to me, and it centers me. I listen to music a lot, and I'll make playlists for different moods. Like here's my playlist for when I'm feeling overwhelmed. It's called. That's literally what I call the playlist. It's okay. And and I have songs that try to that help to remind me that, you know, it's okay. Like you'll be okay. Like this feels overwhelming right now, but here's my practice. It's okay. Just listen to this. Like while you're in the shower, just blast it. Let it rain over you, right? And I do, like I said, I do have I have a spiritual community at my church. It's a small church. We're a bunch of misfits, we call ourselves. You know? So so that's important to me. It's called New Roots, my church. But yeah, it's so like, and it helps to remind me to, honestly, being in community with people help to remind me that, you know, we're spiritual beings having human experiences, right? And I try to remember that, like, because, you know, I'm a person who believes in the afterlife. Like we move on. After our bodies are done here, we like move on to something else. And you know, that's comforting to me. I know not everybody believes that, but it's comforting to me, and it's comforting that there is a being that is bigger and greater than I am, that, you know, has laid a path for me, and I'm on it even when it seems like hard, or even when it seems like something I don't want to do, because I even think, like in my work, like I often say, like, oh, when people talk about a calling, right? I think about
oh yeah.
I'm like, I could be doing something a lot easier. That's not so like emotional to me, right? That doesn't
Yes.
exactly just be like, no, I made lollipops today and they were good, and it doesn't feel like something that's so big to me. But I think that is like with work. I think I thrive in work that I feel called to and that feels important to me. And the things that keep me going, like even when it's hard or stressful and I don't want to do it, is because I feel like it's bigger than me. So Yeah.
I have tried to leave education so many times.
Mm-hmm.
So often. So often. It is a thing that has brought me so much joy, and also, like, I feel like I get bald spots here, or
Yeah.
I like get extra wrinkles on different parts of my
Right.
cheeks.
Yeah.
like, I don't want to do that. I don't want that. And I remember when I was in college, and I'm thinking about like, the way that I believe that like we're guided on our paths, and the way that doors open for you, and when doors
Yeah.
don't open for you, and like sometimes my prayer was like, God, why didn't that door open for me?
Mm-hmm.
and and I remember when I was really young, it must have been, I had just returned from Europe from studying abroad, and me and my mom and my family, we were in the biggest rough and tumble of our relationship. It was
Mm-hmm.
so hard for them to see me, and it was so hard for me to stay silent in things that I
Yeah.
didn't agree with. I was like, I don't believe in God that way. I don't
Yeah.
believe in relationships that way anymore. And I remember coming back, and there was like a year that I got myself in so much debt in college because
Yeah.
I and it wasn't like lots of, but it was like credit card debt because I
Mm-hmm.
refused to ask my dad for money. I was like,
Yeah.
I am not asking them for money. I will figure it out. And so like I took out credit cards, and it was also in the era where they were giving college students a lot of credit
Yeah.
cards. Like,
Yeah.
Yep.
like they're just
Yep.
giving them to us. Great, thanks guys. Um, and I remember going and applying for jobs right next to my university where like I could like easily drive to work and to the university.
Mm-hmm.
I applied, and it was at a mall, and I applied to so many jobs. I was in college, like no one called me back. I must have applied for at least 15 jobs at the
Aw.
mall. No one called me back. And I remember feeling like I just need a job. And one day my mom knocks on my door and says, I need someone to come and do the curriculum work at the preschool. And I was like, sure, okay, I'll go do the work at the preschool. I had enough college credits to do it. And I think back now at so many times that I've applied for so many other roles
Mm-hmm.
outside of education, so many roles outside of education, and I don't get any callbacks. I don't get any
Mm-hmm.
callbacks. But then I apply for a preschool job, get a callback. I apply for nonprofit work within childcare, get a callback. and it's just also the way that I think. I'm also a Christian. I think that like that's the way that God keeps me on this path, like even in
Mm-hmm.
my biggest resistance to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't want to do it. I can't anymore. And he's like, no, ma'am. Or they're like, no, ma'am, turn right around and keep on going. And
Yeah.
hearing you say that reminds me of that piece of wanting to go back and like the reflective process of it. And
Yeah.
so what are some of your rough and tumble aspects of your reflective practice, and you've shared why you keep coming back and what continues to bring you back, but I think of like going a little bit deeper in like what is your personal internal like struggle, and if you're open to sharing a little bit
Mm-hmm.
about that.
I th- um I think often I feel like I have moments where I like run away from who I am. That's 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 my biggest thing where I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, and I fight it. I fight it a lot. Or and people keep like it's one of those things like I'll pray like, okay, God, give me some clarity on this, and you keep giving me the same answers that I don't want to hear. I'm like, Lisa, like maybe I didn't say it the right way because you keep giving me the wrong answer. You know, it's so, and it's so, and I like, and that's something that I'll struggle with, and I think my biggest, and so talking about like sacred relationships, I think for me, like when I'm having those moments, I'm like, okay, who can I talk to? Like, like, and so I'll talk with, you know, people that I know, um, can like help me like accept what I'm hearing, or just walk me through whatever I need it is. I'm very relational. that's
Yeah.
that's how that's just how I am. And so like I think about like the friends that I have in my life that I'm like, okay guys, I need to talk to you about something.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm feeling. I think growing up, like my mother was not an extra emotional person, and I think I have that some baggage that I had where I'm like, oh, okay, like you don't just show your emotions to anybody. But I'm truly a crier. Like I'm like, ooh. But like people will be like, you are. I've never seen you cry. That's so weird. But as I've gotten older, I'm more like open. I'm like, listen, I'm a crier. Even if I don't cry in front of everybody, it's like my confession, right? Yeah, because so I think that's part of my practice, like being vulnerable, like learning to be vulnerable, and like giving myself the permission to be like, okay, like not only like do I not know something, I think that's easier for me to say I don't know something, but I think the harder part for me is to say like how something makes me feel, like because I'm
Yeah.
so like I feel things big.
Yeah.
And so like that's like this wrestling that I have, like how like to allow myself to feel things big. I
Yeah.
think I fight that so much where I'm like, you know what, let me just do this, or let me just whatever and get through it, and not taking the time to feel things. And so for me, what I'm trying to do, I say trying because it's always in process, as I grow older, is to like to make space for myself to feel, and to keep people around me who, say it's okay to feel.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel. And I think especially like doing work with community and with children, I think we're reminded, like we have like these visceral responses to things, and we don't think about like why things are triggering to us. But it makes me, and I think if we all did it, it makes us remember, oh, that's why every time I see a person or a certain kid or a behavior or something somebody's doing, is because it's reminding me of something, even if it's not something that I'm consciously thinking about, but it's reminding me of something that had an impact on me at some point. And that's why I'm responding this way. That's why I'm having these feelings and reactions. And so I'm trying to be better. And this is a struggle to say, oh, that's why.
Yeah. That's so powerful. I think a lot about triggers, and I think about like my own healing, and I also think about how do we not impose our adult
Yeah.
ways of being onto children.
Yeah.
And I had never actually thought, and recently, and a big part of our work, Lauren and I, is reclaiming and remembering. And I don't think I'd ever thought about this piece of, it's a reminder of something that's happened to me, or it's a reminder of my reaction towards that child's XYZ is a reminder of something internal within me. I don't think I'd ever thought of it that way.
Yeah. And it
So
comes up a lot for me. And I talk through it. I talk through it with my husband. I talk through it with mommy friends. I talk through it with aunties, right? Like, I talk about, especially mothering with my daughter, especially. And I think about like these relationships that mothers and daughters have, or that women have with each other. There are, like I said, as we're being institutionalized, I think about like when I was a child and all the hopes and dreams I had for myself that I did not realize, right? And trying not to put that on my daughter, or when I see something in her that reminds me of myself, like how am I, like then how am I reacting? I'm like, ooh, like that reminds me of something of like that reminds me of like when I didn't do what I was supposed to do in a class, and I don't want you to do that because I wish I did what I was supposed to do. So let me help you not do that, but let me help you in a way that I'm not like putting my issues on you. Like,
Right.
how do I, like, you know what I mean? Or even thinking about like the ways that I'm like, well, I wish I had somebody to do this or say this to me or guide me to this. Well, maybe that's not what she needs. That's what I needed. And now I'm making this judgment that, well, you must need it because I need it and nobody gave it to me, so I'm not giving it to you.
Yeah.
All these things, like we're like the sums of our experiences, and that's how we walk through the world, and that's how we interact with people. And it's really interesting. I think I see it with my husband and my sons too. And so we try to like be accountability like parents for each other, like why are you doing that? Like, or you maybe you were a little hard on him or her, like, and remember, and for us, I mean, it takes, it's a lot of work to deal with your own issues. Like, oh yeah, that was me remembering something that I wanted to do that I didn't do, and now I'm putting it on my kid, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
or even it could be in lots of situations. Like, you could have a colleague, you could have a friend, you like, they just every time they do this, it rubs me the wrong way. Like, I used to say all the time that I had like loyalty issues, like, and it's something like when I say it out loud, it sounds silly. But like as a kid, I would hate like that my mother would always like take my teacher side. I'd be like, are you really going to
Oh.
put her over me? Like, I'm telling you what happened, or I'm telling you my experience. Why isn't like how like my perspective as valuable? And I know that like I've taken that with me as an adult in situations that have nothing to do with that. And so like I try to take my practice that I'm trying to be better at is like taking a step back and saying like why are you like why is this coming up for you now? Does it really have something to do with this current situation, or is this you working through something else? And like, how do you get through the now? And work on the thing that's making you feel this way now when it's not like the same thing. But it's like I said, work in progress.
Yeah. We have a joke at our house where we're like, "Oh wow, you're so helpful." Kind of like snap the other person out of like, okay, which of your childhood, the things that didn't get satisfied in your childhood are you trying to help me with right now?
Yeah.
Usually at least one of us can see a sense of humor in that moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that was, thank you. I keep thinking, I keep feeling so grateful to be able to be in conversation with you because even I consistently feel like I'm always learning something from you when I get to sit down with you.
Thank you.
And in this moment, I'm thinking a lot about, there's a part of me that's, and Lauren knows this, there's a part of me that is really silly. And the way that it's about to sound, it's going to sound really silly to the listeners. But there's a version of me that deeply loves art and like street art. And that version of me really is relevant in the bathroom where my boyfriend takes a bath and a shower. And like, that's the space that he's in. So he gets to see this bird. And I was telling Lauren this morning that a part of me is coming into the hallway now because I just bought a beautiful piece of street art that's going to exist in the hallway now. But I was hearing you speak of this relationship with our mothers, and my mom had a really hard time with my dad, and I know that she pushed me as hard as she did because she didn't want me to go through the things that she went through, and she wanted me to have an education, and no matter what, I would be able to take care of myself. And that meant that I had to go to college. That meant that I had to be well educated, that I had to be proper in certain ways. And my dad's an artist. In his own way, he's an architectural artist. He builds homes and he brings the outside indoors in beautiful ways. We are also from the desert, from the El Paso Chihuahuan desert. And so the desert resonates within the way that he builds spaces. And there's a big part of me that's very disconnected from that version of myself. And now in my relationship with Warren, with my boyfriend, I'm like, I want the artist that exists in me, like baby artist Angela wants to start to come out a little bit. And I hear you speak and I'm like, oh, wow. I wasn't expecting to reflect on that today in this conversation. And yet this is where we are. And so thank you for that. Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome, I guess.
So, thinking about our next topic of conversation today, I feel like we're kind of tapping into it a little bit. So it feels right to move that way. We do, of course, we have and I'm sure that you do too, Latoya. Well, I'm assuming you do have a long-term vision that is about thriving, not just to, sometimes we have to work where we are. So right now we're working on surviving, but what about that vision for thriving? Like, imagine, what does that world look like when it comes to giving and receiving in these sacred relationships in the context of thriving?
Yeah, I think.
Oh, and Latoya, maybe if you can weave in for our listeners a little bit more, Angela and I have done our research about your work, but if you can weave in some of your work into that.
Yeah, I think so. Like thriving. So like a lot of my work reflects like when I see like a need, like just trying to solve it. Right. And so, I had a group of parents, we called ourselves phenomenal moms, right? We did advocacy and K through 12 together, but we were a group of moms who all came together. We were in spaces that didn't feel welcoming to us as Black mothers, right? And we said, well, I know some people say, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring your own chair. But we said, we'll just have our own table. And you're welcome to come here, and here are the rules. Right? I think the idea of thriving is so radical, like, and being radical. Angela Davis says like radical means like to grasp something from the root, right? And so if we think about like the root, and even like with my church community now, we always say that we're what is it? Justice seeking and jubilee oriented. And jubilee meaning that like there's this practice, like if you read in the Bible about like every 7 years, I think it's 7 years. But whatever the time frame is, because I might be saying it wrong in case there's like a biblical expert listening. But whatever the time frame is, right? You take this time and you grow like what you need, but you have excess. But like when you have a year of jubilee, you rest and you live on what you've stored, what you had, and you let whoever needs something glean what they need from you. Like you take enough for yourself. And I think for me, thriving is enough. It's like, it's not I don't have a need to be like saving up for a rainy day or the worry of, I know something's going to go wrong. I need to be prepared for when it's wrong. It's that I have what I need now. And if there's a time when I don't have what I need, so I think you can't thrive without like community. And so if you're in community with people in the times that are lean for you, your community will make sure that you have what you need. And so thriving to me looks like being in community with people. And when you're in community, everyone has different gifts and talents, and skills, right? That they bring to this community. And everyone freely gives and receives from each other. Like, to me, that's ultimately thriving. And you're not, and there is a lack of worry. I think I'm a worrier. I think, but a lot of my worry comes from, like, what if I need to be prepared for a rainy day, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, if we could take that away and I could know, hey, if things don't go the way that I've designed them in my mind, that I won't go hungry because I have community. I won't go without shelter because I have community. You know what I mean? I'll have what I need to have, and having what I need is enough. I don't need to have excess. This idea of always, I think this, the society we live in always is like more, more, more. And that makes us feel like as if we're not thriving, honestly.
Yeah.
It makes you like say, I need to get more, more. Instead of saying, like, what do we have? Like, what,
Right.
Yeah.
like this idea of we. It's one of those things people always say. I said, oh, I dream of having a bigger house because I want to have people in it. I want to, I would love to be like the gathering space. I think I'm a natural nurturer.
Okay.
And so, like, for me, feeling thriving is feeling like that I have what I need to nurture, my people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what thriving is, and it just it's to not worrying about, am I fitting into the prototype that someone said that I'm supposed to be, right? Am I always trying to break out of like a mold or a box? Can I just be? And my son, who's on the autism spectrum, my Troy, my neurodivergent child, reminds me of that all the time.
Yeah.
Where he's just like, I don't understand. Like, why would you wear clothes or shoes that are uncomfortable? That doesn't make sense.
Right. Yes.
And he, like, his lack of concern about like what other people are thinking is beautiful to me. And I regret all the years that I was like so focused on him not being that. Like, and so I always told people who are like neurodivergent, just be it. Just be it. It's fine. Like, everybody else needs to learn to just let people live.
For reals. This is making me think about, it's come to us a couple of times, actually. This is our third recording, but the idea of the human body, even, of like, it's even think about the cells in our body at the beginning. There's all different kinds of cells. There's different we've talked about ligaments and cartilage and discs, and we need all of those different things in order to function. And it just makes me, the way you described community makes me think of the way our bodies work and all the different pieces that are required for it for us to just move around.
Yeah. Like, what is homeostasis, right? Like, your cells say, if I have too much water, I'm going to let some out, or I'll take some in.
Right.
And if we think about who are we at homeostasis, like, for ourselves, like, when we're not worrying about like all these external things, like 5-year-old Latoya is an astronaut and she's not worried about gravity, right? Right. So like calling that in, like, reminding yourself of the child that we are, like our inner child, like all the possibilities that is, and just being.
That's the most beautiful part of being with young children. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that a part of the work and the part of the power of creating spaces like even this conversation is shedding light for whoever the listeners may be. And hopefully it's people that actually have lots of power within capitalism
Yeah.
and within our current structures.
Yes.
Because shedding light on like something that has been a consistent thread within the conversations we've had so far is the joy and the reflection that comes with working with young children.
Mm-hmm.
Is the ability to be like, oh, I really want to play that game with that 5-year-old because it makes me feel completely settled within my own body and in my full humanity to sit
Mm-hmm.
here and play doctor or sit here and like learn about nocturnalism and the way bats communicate, right? Or the noticing of the way that the ants form lines in the like the way that they guide each other, right? But we get to do that because we get to be in relationship with young children.
Right. And children, like Lauren said, tell us, they see us, right? For who we are. Like when they keep asking you, are you a mother?
Yeah.
Because that's how they experience you.
Yeah.
Right? And they remind us of how they experience us. Right? And sometimes we get in our feelings like, what did I say?
Yeah, right.
But you know they're just being honest because they haven't learned not to be honest yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Honest about how they feel and honest about how they see things. What's more honest than a temper tantrum, right? Like, listen, I'm not feeling this. I'm gonna just stop and lay out right now. I'm going through some things. Let me have my temper tantrum. I'll be back to play in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? And so, you know, I mean, the executive functioning, all that is great, and we do develop that as we get older.
Yes.
We do. We learn how to self-regulate, but we have to remember not to regulate ourselves so much that we're not ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think I think that's a lot of what we do. It's a lot of what code switching is, right? It's about a lot of what masking is, right? That we feel like we can't be us. So when we know we have relationships that we might consider sacred, and those are the places where we're free, where I can just like be me. I don't have to talk a certain way. I don't have to look a certain way. I don't have to act a certain way. I can just be me. But then I know when I go out, I have to be Latoya, this, whatever they're expecting me to be, like when I show up in a space. And I remember somebody asked me one time they asked me something. I said, well, you know what? I just show up I try to show up how I am. Like I said, I'm a Black woman in a Black body in the United States of America and all the things that come with that, right? I show up, my hair is in its natural state. Right, I'm a dark-skinned Black person. Right, you don't mistake me for anything else. Right, no, it's true. My name is Latoya. It's a stereotypical Black name. Right, that's a Black name. So there's all these things that you know, that I show up in a space, and I think you know because of racism, there is all these baggage that comes with it. It's also this freedom, I think, that comes for me with it. When I'm showing up, I show up in a space as a dark-skinned Black woman with nappy hair. Okay, like, and that's not all of who I am, but I know that like our physicality represents something to people. And I showed up unmasked in some ways. And I hope that gives women who look like me, people who look like me, also the permission to show up in a space. I think I try to live my life as I get older. I know that if I try to do things that are more liberating to myself, hopefully it's leaving space and creating space for those who come after me to show up bigger and bolder and more themselves in a space than I was able to. That it's just like laying that groundwork for them.
Right. It's a bold way of reclaiming your humanity in a space that doesn't allow you to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And one of our promises to our listeners is practical tools or guides. And what is something you'd like to share for our listeners? And I think you've done it. I think that you've, in a sense, modeled the way that the groundwork you want to lay down for other Black women and other Black children, young children, in ways to reclaim themselves. But is there something specific that you'd like to share with our listeners as a practical tool as they do their practice?
Practical tools. There's so many. You have to have toolboxes, right? I would say get some good books. A book that I actually have read with my church community. It's called The Sabbath, and it's about rest and the sacredness of the Sabbath, and that idea of resting and reclaiming like the space with you and your Creator. But it's important in a world, I think, that's like the more important you are means that the more busy you are. And like you have to schedule everything all the time, and people are like overscheduled, and so that's a great book. And a practice that I have, honestly, is if there's a relationship that I want to grow, nurture, or that is sacred to me, I make the space for it. Like, I don't say I have 2 hours with a friend.
Right.
Like, if I'm gonna, like, I know I like to spend time with people. So like, if I'm gonna be with you in the afternoon, that's all I'm gonna schedule. And don't say I'm gonna run to this thing and this, that, and the other, and like just be. And it's hard to do. But don't overschedule yourself. Underschedule yourself.
Yeah,
is my tip. and that leaves room for the spirit to interrupt. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
And I've been thinking about it. If it's okay, I've been thinking about. I told you guys I make playlists for things. Maybe I can make like a short playlist, the sacred conversation, and I'll share it with you. And I'll just share it with you guys. You can share it with people. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah.
And thank you to our listeners. We just want everybody out there to know, if you want to keep the conversation going and to get monthly reflection prompts related to each episode, you can sign up for our mailing list.
And if you want to play with us in real time, exploring the ideas in the episode, please come to the next campfire chat. We look forward to our next sacred conversation with you.
You could check out the show notes for details.